Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a podcast to inspire men on their healing journey and give practical tools to use in everyday life for mental and emotional support. I'm your host, Aaron Cartwright. Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of Hearts of Men podcast. This is the first episode, so I want to go through my story and who I am and why I do what I do and what you're going to get out of this and what this is about. I want you really to learn about me, so going forward you understand my mission and you understand my story, so you can relate. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous before hitting record on this episode because I'm going to be talking about my story, which involves some vulnerabilities. It involves some things that I went through that are quite vulnerable. So bear with me if I muddle my words or I don't say things perfect or I get a bit nervous. I just ask you to be patient if I do muddle up. So first of all, I just want to talk about the actual podcast, what this is and what you're going to learn from future podcasts and who it's for. So Hearts of Men is a podcast for men on the healing journey. You're going to hear about my stories, overcoming things. You're going to learn about my lessons, my learnings as you know, as a man through life. You're going to get tools from me. I'm going to give you tools, some practical tools that you can use in your daily life. So there's going to be some episodes where it's just me talking to the camera and giving you lessons and tools and my stories and all that. There's going to be other episodes where I get people on who either can teach you things as well, or they have really cool stories, really inspiring stories, who have overcome things and are achieving things that they probably thought wasn't possible because they went through whatever trauma or they went through adversities and they've overcome. So this podcast is really for men to inspire and not just inspire, but give practical tools as well. Because there's two things. You want to be inspired in life and know that you can do things too, even though you've been through stuff. But you also want some guidance along the way. So I'm going to try to pack in as much value, like free tools to just get you going in life. So that's my aim for these episodes. As we go through the episodes, I'm sure, things will evolve, but that's where we're at the start of this podcast. That's what I want to do for you guys. It's also for females. So if you're a female listening to this, you will learn a lot about men in episodes, and you will learn about your loved ones that are men or masculine, because we do have differences, and there's no wrong or right, but we do have differences in our energies. So it will be great for females to learn about their masculine loved ones too. So I take a breath because I want to talk about me. I want to talk about my story. And why would I do a male podcast for men of hearts of men? Why would I do this? Why do I dedicate my life to helping mainly men with their emotions, with their anxieties, with their life? Why did I, leave a thriving, financially stable business? Why did I do that? Why did I sell that and go into this? It's because this is my calling. And there was a lot of reasons for this calling, but I'm going to talk about a couple of defining moments that really defined me into stepping into this role as a men's coach, a mental mindset coach, a emotional coach. You can call me a life coach, whatever it is, mainly for men. Let's wind the clock back to 2019. 2019, I had a gym in Royal Park, Adelaide, called HTFU Fitness. I opened that in 2017. I struggled financially. It was really, really tough. I'd never opened a business before. I've been in business, but didn't open an actual business with like a gym, like a property. And there was a lot of overheads. So I learned a lot of business, and I learned how to survive. I learned how to make money. I learned how sales and marketing. I had to learn all these things to pay back all the money I borrowed to open it. At the time, I had a really beautiful girlfriend. When I say beautiful, beautiful heart and beautiful person. And I started doing well in the gym. started doing well. It took me a couple years. I also became a mindset coach in 2017. Now, these aren't defining moments. I'll talk about these moments in later episodes, but I want to get to the main bit, which is I was a mindset coach in 2017. I did mindset in my gym, as well as PT and classes and all that. In 2019, the gym started doing really well. I started putting structures in, and the gym started finally doing really well. It was August 2019. It was a morning. It was sitting in my car by the river, doing my morning checklist, writing out my daily plan. And it was a Monday morning. And excuse me while I remember all this, I might jump back and forth, but it was a Monday morning, maybe 7:30, because it was the sun just come up, maybe the last half an hour. And I looked at my bank account, and I think it was $9,600 or $9,800 hit my bank account for the week in my business. So it was my biggest week financially. And I remember in that moment, maybe a moment after, out of nowhere, I started hyperventilating. I started having a panic attack. I started having a major panic attack. I remember jumping out my car, and I was along the river, West Lakes in Adelaide. And I remember getting out of the car. I couldn't breathe. And I was walking along this river thinking I was dying. Hyperventilating. And it was getting worse and worse. And this went on for a good 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm freaking. I cannot describe the feeling unless someone's been through it, what I was feeling in that moment as I'm hyperventilating. I didn't know the reason at that moment I was hyperventilating. 5 minutes, I'm still going, thinking I'm dying. Couldn't get my breath. Started to slowly come out of it after 5 minutes. And after that, my life changed forever. And I'll tell you why. After that, I went back to the gym to try to work, but I was so afraid of having an anxiety attack again. I couldn't believe this thing just come out of nowhere. And you got to remember, leading up to this event, this anxiety attack, I was confident. I felt I was fit. I was one of the fittest I've ever been. I think I was 13% body fat. For me, that's pretty good. Obviously, I had a lot of money coming in. I had a beautiful partner. It seemed like life was going very well externally. Little did I know, I was internally crumbling, and I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't conscious of it. Now, when this anxiety attack happened, that was the crumbling, falling down. That was my insides falling. That was my internal world crumbling. I remember being petrified. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I just had a panic attack. I didn't know where it come from. I didn't know how it got there. And here I am, normally a confident dude, freaking out, thinking, when is it going to happen again? What just happened? Like, terrified. Fucking terrified of it happening again. I go back to the gym, try to work for the day. My mind is just going. My mind is just running. I couldn't sit still. I was impatient. I was freaking. My breath was. I remember calling my girlfriend at some stage, and I just had to. I went to her house. And told her what happened. And I remember laying in her bed, and she's going, "Your breathing is really weird. Like, you're breathing like." I couldn't breathe properly. Even when, this is hours after, my breathing was, I wasn't breathing. And I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And I was just freaking out. I felt very alone. I felt very ashamed. I felt very weak. I felt all these things. The biggest thing was shame. I had a lot of shame. Because at that moment, I was a gym owner. I looked confident. I ran a business. I had a lot of members there. I had mindset clients. I was a mindset coach. There was a lot of fucking shame about this panic attack and freaking out and not knowing what's going on in my body and having this anxiety, just constant anxiety, panic, panic, panic. So that was the day that changed my life, because after that I started going into a bit of a spiral. Okay, so that was the first day out of nowhere I had this panic attack, and then every day after that it felt like it was getting worse and worse. So every day after that, I was waking up in a panic, waking up basically in anxiety attacks. Now, the anxiety attacks going forwards weren't like the big one, not the 5-minute ones. They were like mini freak out ones throughout the day. Now at the time I was a mindset coach, so I did know a lot about the, balancing perceptions and a lot of mindset work. I knew a lot of that stuff, but I started doing about 3 to 4 hours a day minimum of mindset work, sitting down, doing the work, whether it was my beliefs, my balancing perceptions, and everything I knew that I taught others at that time, I was doing, and it wasn't helping. It might help for a moment and then it would get worse. Help for a moment and get worse. And then every time it would get worse, I would go deeper into a hole, thinking I couldn't get out of it, thinking I was all alone. So that really started to scare me. Now, I'm actually like, as I talk about it, I can feel my sweat because I'm going through the motions of what I went through, and it was very, very difficult, very difficult. So every day after that, it was just constant panic, and if you look at you could go back on my Facebook at that time, and, I would have posted things and probably looked normal, right? Because I had no choice. I had to look normal. I would put on a normal face for as long as I could, but then when no one was watching, I was fucking shaking. I was anxious. I was like, I was fearing death a lot. At that time, there was a huge fear of death come out of nowhere. And when I look back at that panic attack, it was like this, like this fear of death panic attack. And I'll get to that maybe on a later episode, or if I can squeeze it in today, I will. But there was a lot of panic about dying out of nowhere. Anyways, I kept going through this every day. It was, trying to do the mindset work and just freaking out. I had, a gym with I had an employee. I had contractors. I had people running the gym. I ran the gym too, and I just couldn't function. I just couldn't keep it together. I was just struggling. I was struggling so bad. I just couldn't get out. Like, I wanted to hide from the world, and I couldn't because I was so busy. I was so busy with this business. I was so had so many responsibilities, a lot of pressure, and I just didn't know what to do. And just to back up, I already went to a therapist years before this, and I didn't particularly get much out of it. And there was no way I was going to go to a therapist in this state, because they didn't help me when I wasn't even in a state like this. That's my personal preference. It didn't work for me. So in my mind, I couldn't go to a therapist. I couldn't go to my mentors who I learned this mindset stuff from, which I did, but it didn't help. So then I felt all alone. I didn't know what the fuck to do. Every day it felt like hell. Every day I was wishing I'd wake up and it would just be a bad nightmare. But it wasn't. It was a true nightmare. It was a reality for me. I was waking up every day in panic, not knowing what to do, very anxious, very scared, very alone. Now at the time I had my girlfriend, and I remember telling her about it, and I just remember her being quite she did the best she could, but I think, as time was going on, days after days, weeks after week, she was getting a bit worried, because I just wasn't coming good. I wasn't coming good. Obviously, I've been through challenges, and she's seen me overcome things, but this was a little bit different. This was something I didn't experience before. Now, in my body during this time, I was experiencing my heart. I remember my heart just being like pounding all the time and hurting all the time. Like my heart was physically hurting. Boom, 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 hurting. The anxiety, I could literally feel my body with anxiety. I could feel my whole body. It wasn't even like I've got anxiety. It felt physical. My physical, like insides, it's almost like I felt every inch of me with anxiety. I felt something. I thought I had anxiety before that. I thought I've experienced anxiety before this, but this was next fucking level. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know a human could experience this level of anxiety or this level of panic or this level of constant like torture in their own body. Very scary. The thoughts that were going through my mind were very scary. The feelings going through my body were very, very uncomfortable, and I didn't know what to do. So anyways, time's going past, and I just didn't want to be around any humans. I was so ashamed of myself. I was so scared. I was having little panic attacks every day. I didn't want to socialize. I was afraid of dying. I literally felt I was going insane. I felt like I was heading towards a mental institution. I felt like I had no choice but to, yeah, like at some point check in or something, because I was getting worse. And I just spent maybe a good 10 grand on coaches and mentors who normally helped me in the past, but they couldn't get me through this. It just wasn't working. And because of that, and it's nothing against these mentors, they're amazing, but the things I was going through, they couldn't help me with the tools. Every tool is limited with, not every modality, every therapy is limited in some way. And in this case, it was very limited for me at the time with my mentors. And because of that, at the time, these mentors who taught me so much and they helped me overcome so much, in this time when it wasn't working, I freaked out more because I thought, fuck, if they can't help me, no one can. I'm fucked. I'm by myself. When I started thinking like that, I was going in between a deep depression, a deep sadness, a deep numbness, a deep like, fuck, I wish I would die because this is just torture, to I would go to the other side, which was extreme panic. So extreme anxiety, extreme thoughts, extreme like thinking, extreme whatever. I was TikToking moment by moment, moment by moment. So 1 minute I'm panicking, next minute I'm super depressed. 1 minute I'm afraid of dying and panicking about dying. The next minute I want to die. It was the weirdest thing I've been through. And it was just like that constantly. Because of that, my body was in constant fight or flight and I was exhausted. My body was exhausted. I felt like my body was just fucking crumbling. My body was literally breaking down, and it was, I was getting pimples everywhere. I was getting all these ulcers. I was getting these things because my body was breaking down, and I was very ashamed. I was very, very ashamed that I was going through this, and terrified. So, anyways, I remember one night, my girlfriend at the time had a shack, an hour south of Adelaide in near Victor Harbor, a place called Victor Harbor. And I said, because at the time I was living with my auntie, and she lived with her parents. So we didn't really have our own space. And I just needed some space. I just needed to get away. I just needed to try to figure this out. I needed some time. So I remember calling her up. Sorry, actually, I remember her because I was too ashamed to even be around her because I felt like I was a burden to her. I felt like I was disgusting. I felt like I was scaring her, which I feel like I was at that time. So I was trying to stay away from her. And she called me once, and I remember her saying, she called me once and said, "What the fuck is going on, Aaron? You're scaring me." And I remember in that moment, and no fault of her own, but I remember thinking, I'm a fucking failure as a human. Scaring my girlfriend like this, scaring this person I love like this, because I can't sort my shit out. And this is not a dig at her at all, because she was scared. She was like, she didn't normally see me like this, and seeing me like this over a period of time was very scary. Someone you love. Anyways, I remember her saying that and me just trying to snap out of it. And me just going on the phone, I'll figure it out or whatever. And I was like literally trying to force myself to snap out of this fucking madness I was in internally. And I remember driving to her house, trying to I remember putting on nice clothes and like doing my fucking hair, trying to look normal, trying to like force myself together. Got to a house, pretending I was like calm, pretending I was, normal, whatever. And then we got in the car and drove down to Victor Harbor to her shack. And I remember being at this shack, and it gave me like a little breather of like, cool, we're away from people and, whatever. And I remember getting there. It was at nighttime, and then me just like curling in a fucking ball. Curling in a ball, and I felt like I remember just having this blank stare. I felt blank and kind of just doing the old rock, just rocking like a baby, like um what do they call it? The fetal position. I think it's fetal position, and just like kind of rocking. And now looking back on it, I was having a full blown like nervous breakdown, like where my nervous system just couldn't cope and just broke down. And I remember rocking back and forth and just being blank. And then I remember just falling asleep out of exhaustion and waking up the next morning, and it's still there. The panic was still there. My girlfriend at the time wanted to go somewhere. I said, no, I can't go. I need to stay here. And I remember doing the mindset work, trying to figure things out still. And there was a moment where I was trying to figure this out, like trying to figure my mind out. And this was the point where I felt like I was going crazy. I was like, I'm not getting better. I'm stuck. I'm stuck forever. I was doing this this process, mindset process, where you balance out things, and it was making me feel worse. And I was like, and my mind, I can't really just, I'm trying to describe it as I talk, but my mind felt like I was literally losing it, losing my bearing, losing grip on reality. I was completely losing it. Like I was freaking. And it kind of felt like my brain just snapped. It was like this boiling point of like snap. And I remember just like I had to get up and drag myself back into the shack. And I just remember laying there again in a rocking position. And I remember my girlfriend at the time coming home from wherever she was, and I could see the terror in her eyes. That's the perception I had. I remember her walking in, and as I'm broken, I remember seeing her face, and yeah, I remember seeing her face, and I it broke me. It broke me because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't help her. I couldn't help her feel better. She was freaking out, and it broke me. And she was terrified. I was so ashamed in that moment. And in that moment, I just wanted to die. I honestly did. I didn't want to be. And I remember thinking, I can see why people do it. I can see why people, would kill themselves or, do shit like that. Because in moments like that, it's when you're broken like that, especially as a man, there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of darkness. And it's scary. So that was one of the moments that defined me. And I remember thinking, I think it was that night when that happened, or that day when I was, she come in and I seen her face and just the look on her face. I remember thinking very clearly, if I ever get out of this situation, if I ever make it through this fucking nightmare, I promise I will help other men. I remember making a fucking promise to God, to whoever, some higher power, if I can make it through this unscathed, because it wasn't just making it through. I remember thinking, if I make this through unscathed and normal, without fucking something, my mind fucking up, or me going into some sort of mental institution and staying there and just being fucked for life, because that's what I felt like at the time. I promise I will help other men get through shit. So as time went on, obviously I was still struggling. I went through some serious depersonalization. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what the fuck depersonalization was. I didn't know what derealization was. But for those that don't know, basically what I felt was I felt everything was fake. So when I was so anxious, my nervous system was broken down so much and so fucking out of this world and so painful that my soul, my basically your soul, this is how I define it. My soul left my body and it felt like I was watching myself constantly and I wasn't in my body. Nothing felt real. It felt like I was in a movie. And for those who have been through it know exactly what I'm fucking talking about. And it's the most terrifying thing I've ever felt. The panic attacks have nothing on depersonalization. And this is what can happen if, your nervous system gets it gets so jacked up like mine did. So I went through months of feeling like everything was fake. Everything was not just fake, but scary fake. It's like you're watching yourself. You're not in your body. You can feel things, but you're not feeling things. You look at things, but you don't know what's real, what's fake. Everything looks fake. And that's a protection mechanism of our nervous system when things get too out of control internally. Anyways, I went through a lot of depersonalization, and this was going on for months. I ended up selling that gym because, I was like, the money's not fucking worth it. I remember hitting, the 10 grand hit my bank account. I was like, fuck this. If I have to work like this and work against my soul, it wasn't in me anymore. It wasn't in me to do that work and money. I'll give it away. I didn't care. So I sold it. I broke up with my girlfriend in December 2019. That was very, very difficult because she was a beautiful human and she was my best friend. But a big part of that reason was I felt like I couldn't be stable enough for her. Another reason was we had some incompatibilities. But one of the bigger reasons at the time was that I was like, I can't be with this girl because I can't give her what she needs, which is stability. I need to work on myself. So that was very tough to go through that. So it was from August, September, October, November, December. It was a good 5 months of basically daily panic, daily TikToking from anxiety to like a depression or shutdown or feeling like those thoughts of, just wanting to die, but too scared to kill yourself kind of thing. Just TikToking through these, constantly just took its toll. So 5 months in, I was basically not giving up, but I was losing faith because I wasn't getting better. Everything I knew wasn't working. All the mindset tools I knew weren't working anymore. But then I was on Facebook one day and I seen someone post something about, what they went through, and it was something similar. And then they started talking about, getting in the body and why we have anxiety and where panic attacks come from and nervous system regulation, all this shit I never heard about. And I was like, fuck, I will try anything. So yeah, there was this, one of my mentors at the time, taught me a lot of body work, a lot of the inner child work, a lot of breathing, a lot of nervous system regulation. And, I flew to Sydney for a 2-day event. And, even getting on the plane there, I was like, I don't even want to fucking get on this plane. That was February 2020. Got on the plane, went to this event, and it changed my fucking life. We did some breathing, and I realized how jacked up my nervous system was. We did some inner child work where I first met, that little boy inside of me who's terrified. And I gave him love, and I felt unconditional love for this scared boy inside of me that we all have as men and females. We've all got one. And what I realized was, this panic attack and all these things that happened, there's a few things, but just in general, what was going on was my scared boy was coming up. I had a scared child inside of me coming up, and I was ignoring him. I was leaving him. I was, talking shit to him. That's how I was talking to myself. I hated myself. That's why I was so driven. That's why I was so driven to be successful. I was so driven to be perfect because I hated myself deep down. I thought I didn't. I thought I loved myself, but I didn't. I was driven by hate for myself. I was driven to succeed so other people will see me as successful so I can finally love myself. And my nervous system, my inner child couldn't handle it anymore. Now, if inner child creeps you out, don't worry. You don't have to, like, later episodes, I'll talk about inner child and all the modalities that I've done and what I believe works well. But just know that this started to change my life. And then I spent from February 2020 working every day on myself. I bought a van. I lived in my van and I thought, fuck everything. I'm single now. I don't have a business to run. I'm just going to focus on myself. That's it. That's my main priority in life. And every day for about a good year, I spent about 4 hours a day working on my nervous system, working on self-love, working on my inner child, working on breathing, working on getting in the body, working on having fun in life, bringing in more play, more creativity, more joy. And I come out of all that shit. I come out of the depersonalization, which is terrifying if anyone's been through it. And apparently some people say you can't get out of it. So some people that think that are stuck with it, which I'm going to say bullshit. I come out of it. I come out of depersonalization, derealization. My anxiety went from a 10 constantly to the normal anxieties that every human gets now. All right. So we all get anxieties, but there's a difference between normal anxieties and constant panic in your nervous system. Okay. So I made it through and I have to now deliver on my promise, and I want to deliver, and I have been delivering on my promise, which to help other men through their darkness, other men through the dark night of the souls, other men through shit where they think they can't get through. So I'm here to guide you. Whether you're going through something now, whether you're potentially going to go through something in the future, potentially if you're coming out of something and you're still a bit confused, or potentially, you know, you haven't been through anything and you just want to learn, this is for you. I'm delivering on my promise. And since, COVID 2020, I've just slowly been helping people along my journey, and they've been following me on my journey, and I've been guiding people as I'm maybe a few steps ahead of some other men and females. I can guide you guys, and I can happily say now it's been close to 3 years since I started coming out of that and working on myself, my nervous system, and it's changed my life. So that's why I do what I do. There's plenty more stories about my life that, you know, added to the defining moments of why I do this, but that was one of the biggest ones 3 years ago in 2019, where I never had something so deep and scary happen for so long, for constantly. And I think I had to go through that. I believe I had to go through that because if I didn't, I couldn't relate. I wasn't going to be able to relate to people, to men who are going through shit. So I'm super grateful I went through that experience. At the time, I was not grateful. At the time, I just wanted it to be over. But looking back on it, it was almost a divine thing that happened to put me on this mission, you know, to put me in the fire to help other men, to relate to them, but not only relate, but give tools to. So I've probably missed out on a lot of details. I've got a little bit of like sweat as I'm talking about it, because it's like I'm going through the motions again of exactly what happened, and it was quite painful. But yeah, I just want to know, I want to let you guys know that you don't need to be ashamed. As a man, as a masculine man too, I wouldn't consider myself a feminine man. I've got feminine aspects and I love the parts of me that are feminine, but I would say I'm more dominantly masculine. And us masculine men can struggle more than the feminine men with this shit, because we have so much pride in being confident and strong and providers and successful and all this, right? Great. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. The issue with that is when we struggle, we really struggle because there's so much shame attached, because we're so prideful, we're so proud of the other side of us, and we're so ashamed of the other side of us that isn't always fucking strong. isn't always a provider, isn't always feeling up to things, isn't always feeling good. The parts of us that feel anxious and depressed and scared and lonely and all these things, we can be very ashamed of these parts of us. So this podcast going forwards, I'm going to give you tools to help you get back within yourself and start to love the parts of yourself that you most likely hate deep down, or you're having a hard time accepting. And why would I do that? Because if we don't accept all of us, you're going to have breakdowns, big ones, most likely. Why? Because life is trying to teach us how to love ourselves. Life will smash us until we learn to love ourselves. No one externally can give us what we need truly deep down. Nothing. No money in the world is going to help you with this. No woman or man, if you're in a, same-sex relationship, whatever, masculine, feminine. No feminine energy is going to be able to do this for you. Very important having, it's very beautiful having a partner or the feminine. I love the feminine. But you need to start doing this. You need to start loving these parts of yourself and working on yourself, because ultimately you're responsible, like I was. You're responsible for yourself. And you will get through whatever you're going through. So hopefully this sheds some light on a bit of my story. In upcoming episodes, I will talk about more of my story, maybe my childhood and all this stuff. But I just wanted to give you the main thing of what really turned me into this work, and why I'm very, very passionate about helping men, especially when they're struggling through shit. Especially men who might seem like they've got it all together and might seem they've got all the money or they're successful or whatever. But I see you. I see the emptiness inside of you. I see the little boy inside of you that's fucking terrified of the world. I see it, and that's okay. Nothing to be ashamed of. Through the next episodes upcoming, hopefully we can start to guide you back to yourself and start working on these parts. Thank you. If you watch this on YouTube, give me a like. If you watched it anywhere else, like it, share it, review it, whatever you can to get it to other men or females who want to learn about men who are struggling, and just get into the mind of a man. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for, as I stumbled through some of it, I appreciate all of you. And thank you for all of your support. I've got a lot of supporters especially over the last couple of years, who've been following my work on Facebook, who have been following me on social media, and it's just supporting in general. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow me, if you haven't followed me yet, I'm on Facebook. You can follow me at Aaron Cartwright. At this time, it's called Aaron Cartwright All Things Healing. Instagram is All Things Healing, or you can just type in Aaron Cartwright, or you can even add my personal Facebook page, Aaron Cartwright, because I post a lot of stuff on there too. So I think that's it for the first episode. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you guys, or you guys will hear me in the next episode. Thanks for watching this episode of Hearts of Men. I really appreciate it. If you could give back and give a like, a comment, a share, a review on any of the platforms you're watching on, that would really help me get my message out to more men. If you don't follow me on socials, please follow me, Aaron Cartwright, All Things Healing on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks, guys. See you on the next episode.